I have played real guys before, people who actually existed. And sometimes I've spent a lot of time with the actual guys I played. Jim Lovell, Sully Sullenberger, Charlie Wilson. And all the time you say, look, I'm going to say things you didn't do and say things you didn't say and do things you didn't do. But beyond that, I want to be as accurate as possible. The added burden of, if I can be so bold, as Mr. Rogers, because it was not just the expectations of the man himself, but the expectations of everybody else about Mr. Rogers.
Hey, congrats on this.
Thank you very much.
What a beautiful movie.
It is. I'm very, very proud of it.
I mean, just walking into the hotel, I saw you walking into the hotel, and just the sight of you put me in a good mood because it took me back to this movie.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Things I never hear.
Never? You've never heard that you put someone in a
It's rare that people go, oh, you cheered me up just looking at you.
I hope I'm not outing too much, but I did see you walking in with your daughter, and I thought,
Son.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, he does have incredibly long hair. So.
And I was 50 feet away respecting his privacy.
That's very kind of you, but he is often mistaken for a girl because we haven't even chopped his hair from birth yet.
If it's any consolation, up until I was 12, they thought I was a girl. So, I mean, it happens. Long hair, short hair, doesn't matter.
No.
You had your child with you, and I thought, this is great that I'm about to talk to him about this movie.
Yes. And we, myself, Kerry, have seen, obviously, with the research I was doing on Mr. Rogers, we kind of used Sam as the little guinea pig because he'd been watching Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, the cartoon spin-off.
Oh, okay, sure.
And we've turned him onto Mr. Rogers' show now, starting from black and white.
Right.
And he was in from the first moment.
Isn't it wild how timeless it is? Like you could put on the original black and white Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
What's incredible, one of the big revelations to me was, when I first watched it, and it was, I thought something was wrong. Is he making it up? Is that why he takes so much time? But the scripting was so meticulous, the timing was so meticulous, because he wanted children to have the ability to hear what he said, and then the time to process it properly, so that his timing is something so deliberate and so thought out, especially for children of a certain age.
It comes from kindness, but it's so scientific at the same time.
It is, and a real sincerity in about listening to children as well, and giving them the real time that they deserve, and treating them with maturity.
You got to play Tom in this movie. Did you hang out with Tom to get inside that head?
I did. I was incredibly intrigued with the inside of that head and the journey he went on. He was this incredible, rock star journalist of the 90s in Esquire. And Fred Rogers sought him out when Esquire approached Fred to say, we'd like to do a big piece on you.
Sure.
Read all these pieces and went, I want Tom Junod to interview me because he saw something in him that he wanted to kind of to broach and see what was going on in Tom's mind. And as a result, we have this movie.
Had Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood existed when Tom was a young lad growing up, he may not have gotten so bitter at any point in his life. He could have worked things out.
Exactly. Or he might have asked for a different journalist, but that's very true. But he had a very, very personal, interaction and experience with Fred Rogers.
Joanne, did you meet her?
A lot. She's in the movie.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if you spot her, but yes, she was around a lot, and it was incredible. We shot on the actual WQED studios, in the very studio that Fred did. And they rebuilt the set to its exact standard. One of the great experiences was seeing Joanne walk in and kind of go, "Oh, you rebuilt it."
I kept thinking during that scene she's in what it must have been like for her in that moment to look around and realize that his legacy was being preserved in this way.
That's what she's, I think she said a number of times that how proud she is of what he accomplished and the fact that, his legacy is still going on. And what tickles her the most is that Tom Hanks is playing Fred because Tom was Fred's favorite actor. So it's full circle.
Well, you are wonderful in this, and I'm so glad it's a part of your catalog.
Thank you very much.
Fred was literally one of the people who loved Lloyd into existence. In our movie, that's what happens. And Lloyd is so much, he's a better everything. He's a better son, he's a better father, he's a better husband, he's a better journalist, he's a better friend, all because a guy who had no reason to do so said, you're very special. And I think you're great, just exactly as you are.
Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you, too.
Congratulations on this.
Thank you.
I mean, just walking in to see you to talk to you about this put me in a good mood. I think that's a testament to the
I
film.
love that. I love that. I hope that this movie gets people feeling good for a long time.
Like, I'm sure the world needed it at the time you conceived doing this movie, but now that it's dropping more than ever, we need this movie.
It does feel like it's coming at the right time. For whatever that's worth, I think things happen when they're meant to happen.
If Fred was around to have been a collaborative part or even a force on the set of this movie, what do you think he would have been saying? What do you think his attitude would have been about all of this?
Well, I got to spend a lot of time with his wife, Joanne,
Sure.
so I do feel like I kind of have a sense of how he would have been, and I think he would have probably been in awe at how much work the whole thing was and acknowledged how much work we were doing and made us feel like we were doing a good job, because I think that was how he tended to treat people.
You know, as I started to ask that question, suddenly it dawned on me, Fred probably was around. Fred was definitely embedded in every nuance of this.
We felt that way. You know, we were filming in Pittsburgh, in his hometown,
Sure.
in the studio where he actually filmed the show. We had every tie that Tom Hanks is wearing was a real Mr. Rogers tie that his wife let us take out of his closet. You know, we felt the reverberations of Fred everywhere we went.
What I love about your take on this is that you didn't put Tom Hanks through countless hours of prosthetic makeups to try to make him absolutely pull it off.
It was a philosophical point of view. What we needed was the essence of Fred. We needed his emotional heart to be right. We needed what was happening behind the eyes to be right. It wasn't about every gesture being perfect or it being a perfect impersonation, because if we were watching the work of that, it would separate us from him. It was about getting us as close to to Fred as possible, a very intimate portrait.
And one of the moments I think you do that the best, one of my favorite moments of the film, and I know this is a nuanced thing to point out, but there's a moment where he's doing some of the puppetry and you are backstage and you push in on a fairly tight shot of Tom.
He didn't know I was filming.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's puppeting Daniel Tiger, and I made him do everything live. So
Sure.
He's actually puppeting, singing live,
Right.
looking at a little monitor that's showing what the puppet is doing. So he's behind the clock, puppeting Daniel Tiger. And he knew he was maybe going to be seen for a second, but he didn't know I was going to push the camera in on him, which we were zooming in, so he couldn't
Yeah.
feel it. It was just the lens was zooming in. And he's concentrating so hard on the actual puppeteering. And it's an incredible moment. You're watching him sing as Fred and puppeteer and work so hard, and he realized how hard Fred's job really was too.
What I love about you being a part of this, your head's sort of been in this space since you were a child. You were doing children's theater.
I was doing children's theater.
What from Winnie the Pooh at the age of 6 did you bring to the table for a beautiful day in the neighborhood?
You know, it does all feel connected. I think there's something about entertainment for children and what it can do. You know, I have a little child who's almost 5 years old. We read Winnie the Pooh these days all the time. There's something so pure about those types of entertainment that I really, truly love. And the thing about Fred's message is it was for kids, but he has something to say that we all need too, even as adults.
Amen. Only a nice person could have brought this to life.
Thank
That's
you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Great
Cheers.
to meet you.
She came out very specifically back to me with a perspective of the power of the force of Mr. Rogers as opposed to the plot that goes on. I said, okay, whoa. I get that. That I understand. And I hadn't seen the documentary yet, hadn't done anything like that. I just knew that she was coming at this this is the red dot of what this movie is, and that is the chosen power of empathy.
Very nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Excellent work in this.
Thanking you.
You know, just seeing anyone from the film puts me in a good mood.
Oh,
That's how
good.
great and
Oh,
effective this
good.
film is.
I'm so happy to hear that.
What was it like seeing it finished for the first time?
You know, I watched it actually with Matthew for the first time, and I think we were still like, oh my gosh, like look at us up there. We were still in our actor heads and in our actor minds.
Sure.
And seeing how it all came together, and then watching it again, you get to see what a beautiful movie it is. You know what I mean? It always takes me more than one watch to see.
Right.
And so it was really by the second time, and then I get to watch it tonight for a third time and just really get to enjoy it as an audience member, which
Soak
I'm
it
really
in.
looking forward to. Yeah.
Don't you love, they could have done a traditional biopic on Fred Rogers, but don't you love that the movie more or less dives into this story that shows the effect, just one story of the billions of his effect on the world?
Isn't that something? And I think that, you know, it's not what people expect. You know, this is a film about his influence on a person who didn't even realize he needed him, you know?
Sure.
And so it's not what you expect, but it is sort of this really great way to also get to know Mr. Rogers without it being like a biopic.
Did you get a chance to hang out with Joanne, talk to her about?
You know, I did not, and I feel like I missed out because I've heard such wonderful stories about her.
Maybe tonight.
I hope so.
So in doing this movie, you do play a real counterpart. Did you hang out with her? Get inside the room?
With Tom Junod's wife?
Yes.
No, actually, my character is sort of written and kind of based on what I wanted to bring to it. And in some ways, that gives you a lot of freedom.
Right.
You know, I would love to, do something that's based on the true life of someone else.
Sure.
But this one was sort of, what we wanted to create. So I got to kind of have fun with taking Andrea in all these different places.
Well, I love that she's sort of the grounding force of this movie. Like she's someone that's getting the big picture, seeing it from afar.
Right. Yeah.
Talk about how the world now needs this movie more than ever. It's dropping at the right time.
It's dropping at the right time. I think Thanksgiving's the perfect time. I think, everything is so polarizing these days, you're on this side or you're on that side. You're yes or you're no. You're canceled or you're not. And this is a nice way to remember that we're all going through something. We're all
Amen.
Having a moment, right? And nobody knows what it is to walk in each other's shoes. But maybe if we take a moment, we realize we are all still really connected. We all still need the same things. We all still need compassion. We all still need kindness. We all still need someone to say, I see you, I understand. I'll take a minute and sit with you and just see what this moment is about. This movie takes that kind of time, and I feel like we need that right now.
And the way you said what you just said, it makes me think you need your own show. You should be doing your own talk show.
Well, listen, hey, I'm not opposed.
Is there one Fred Rogers-ism that sinks in that you take with you day to day?
Oh, you know what? I'm having patience with people, knowing everybody's trying. I don't think anybody is just waking up not trying, because you don't just wake up and roll out of a bed and, you don't do it. It's everybody's trying to put one foot in front of another. And it's something to really actually conceptualize that. No, this person is trying. Maybe they don't realize that, they're not doing something that you would like them to do or whatever. Maybe they don't realize. Maybe they're not trying to personally offend you or whatever it may be. But I think if we recognize that really we are trying to put our best foot forward and some empathy and sympathy with people, then that would make it all kind of like a sweeter place to be.
I feel like she was talking about me right there. Thanks for putting up with me. Nice to see you.
Great to meet you.
Thanks for your time. Good to meet you. Hey, congrats on another one.
Thank you.
Beautiful movie. Have you seen it with an audience yet?
I did. Matter of fact, I saw it months ago at home on a computer screen. They set me up so I could see it. And I must say, last week I was back in town in New York here and saw it with a theater full of foreign press and on the big screen. And I'm so happy I did because now I have something really to talk about and be very proud of.
Absolutely.
Being involved with this one.
And I would guess that as an actor being classically trained, you want empathy from an audience that you don't get when you're making a movie. But when you sit in a theater, when you sneak in to see the audience leaning into the scenes and the moments, you get a feel for it.
It was a very strong feeling watching the film with this group of people. Very touching. Real touching.
A lot of pressure, though. I mean, you and the team have to make sure that you respect this man's legacy.
It was in the can. We did our job. Now it was up to the different houses.
Did you feel the spirit? Did you feel the presence of Fred everywhere on set?
Marielle Heller, our director, she was a great captain of this crew of actors and cast and crew. And she set a real great standard and so capable.
Sure.
She was just the person for this kind of film. I think she brought a lot of her own touches to it.
some of my favorite moments and some of the most touching moments of the movie are between you and Tom as Fred in the third act of the movie.
Yeah.
Were you feeling
well, it? Was yes, it was. I mean, I'll be a little hesitant to say what I was working from, but I think this particular scene you're talking about, it was as if I was looking into the eyes of God, you know.
There's so much that I would guess that you could draw from with this. I've been talking to you for years, and I think you're a remarkable human being, just in front of the camera and the way you live your life. And I would think it's a special group of people that need to come together to make this movie. So you're in the right place, in the right company.
Oh, I felt very, very fortunate, and I was given a character with a lot of dimension. And having talked to you and so many folks, you'll know that half of the fun for me is doing the research and trying to develop a character that's interesting and multi-dimensional, and I don't want to, repeat myself in these different performances. But the atmosphere that was set up and was really, really, really remarkable, and actually the way we shot this down the road, having Tom come in after the other cast, we were very familiar with each other, and then have Tom come in a week or two later, it just kind of felt this is how it should be. This is how we should shoot this film, because he was such a force, and just kind of set you back. His Fred's way of listening to you, it's not intimidating, but it makes you stop and breathe and take a breath and come back to reality,
Yeah, we could use him right about now in this world.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for your time.
Tom was around the set quite a bit. He was hanging around, and I asked him specifically about, was he aware of the effect that Fred was having on him. Tom was going through, I guess, anything that a man goes through, family and health and work and career. He wasn't the happiest guy on the planet. But in the course of doing his job, he came smack dab, face up against Fred Rogers, who were saying things like, "You're really special, You have a lot of gifts, and you work hard at what you do. And, you don't have to do anything to make me like you. I'm liking you fine." And I'm sure the jaded member of the Fourth Estate in Tom's mind would say, "What's this guy hiding? Why is he snowing me on this thing?" And he was just being Fred Rogers.
Nice to see you.
Hey, Mark.
Only nice people could bring this project to life, and the genesis of this was, Fred Rogers and then you.
Right.
How did you feel when you got the word that it had been greenlit, that your words were going to jump off that page and onto a movie screen?
I was surprised. I mean, but I was sort of part of it. I mean, they in 2014, I got approached by the screenwriters. In 2018, Tom Hanks was cast, and when Tom was cast, it sort of changed everything, because you knew that all of a sudden that this was going to have a wider reach.
Sure.
And the fact that it does have a wider reach. I mean, you don't know what it's going to be like, but the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you and talking to people about Fred's message, is one of the great sort of gifts of my life.
I'd love to know that everything we see in this movie is true, and I believe from people I've talked to that it is. Is it true? Do you feel like Fred specifically selected you because he thought maybe there was some work that could be done?
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's some things that are different in the movie in between my life. Like, I never got into a fist fight with my dad.
Okay.
So,
all right.
those kinds of things. But in terms of the nature of Fred's outreach to me, the movie is extremely accurate. I'm not the only one that he did this to, but I am definitely one of the ones that he saw maybe something in. I always look at it as that he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Sure.
And from the moment I met him till, when he died in 2003, that was, the consistent part of our friendship.
I believe in you, from what I know from your writing and, of course, the way it's depicted in the movie, that your heart is enormous. You had to weep when you saw Tom Hanks transform into Fred Rogers.
Yeah, the experience of watching the movie for the first time. I mean, I stumbled out of that movie theater and sat down on a park bench and, was weepy and exhausted and relieved and exhilarated, all of those things. It was an incredibly emotional experience, and I have to say that I've seen it 2 times since, and every single time it's hit me pretty hard.
So how can you select any one of Fred Rogers' ways and things that Fred Rogers instilled in all of us, since we can remember? But if you could pick three Fred Rogers-isms that you take with you each and every day.
Fred Rogers-isms in terms of what he said?
Sure.
Okay, so
things that you live.
Sure. I mean, you are special. I mean, that is that's become like his trademark, and people look at that as so simple. But it really, if you really get down into it, it was quite a serious and not something just for children. The other one was I like you. Once again, it was one of those things where, I mean, what does that really mean? Fred didn't say something just to say it. So what was he really getting at? And then you were a child once too. That is one of those things that I think that Fred would extend to. He did extend to everybody he met, and I think that he would continue extending it to everyone he met, even in today's more difficult world. So.
Yeah, I love that last one. Even in your writing, you bring up that Fred had been commissioned to write something for ophthalmologists, and that was pretty much summed up the entire chapter.
Yeah. You were a child once too. I mean, think of just the power of that. And that's one of the things that I like to think about Fred, is that he was a very kind man and he was a nice man, but he was also a powerful man because of those beliefs and statements.
Yeah, there's a lot of Fred Rogers in you too.
Yeah, okay.
So
Well,
good to see you. Thanks so much for your time.
I think he's one of those people that, for Fred, actually turned into a broader human experience. And I've seen the letters that they wrote back and forth to each other for long after that. I saw a lot of correspondence that he would keep up. And he and Tom Junod, they kept in touch about everything that was possibly, under the sun, which is, again, Lloyd, or in our movie, expanded Fred's world, and he was grateful for just how special a gift that is.